the Galloway Township Board of Education. Today is Monday, September 24th. This is a regular meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Avery, Mr. Gentile, Ms. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Rowe,
Here.
Mr. Hand,
Here.
Mr. North, Dr. Carmenter,
Here.
Vice President Days,
Here.
President Harden.
Here. May we all raise for a flag salute led by Dr. Carpenter.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In accordance with Public Law 231, notice of this meeting was provided to the press, the current and the Galloway Township Municipal Building on January 20, 2018. In your packet was the minutes for September 10th, 2018. It was a regular meeting and there was one change in number 2. The board solicitor was not present. It was marked that she was present at that meeting. Other than that change, did everyone have a chance? And is there a first to approve those minutes? Thank you. Have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Any abstentions? Any noes? Thank you. Moving on to reading the communications, please.
Thank you. We have a letter from Linda Eno, Assistant Commissioner, thanking the school district for participating in Career Awareness Day held at Stockton University. We also have a letter from David Vinakura, who is Customer Outreach Program Specialist at South Jersey Gas. Our district participated in the first annual Career and Community Resource Fair, and I will specifically thank Mr. Bruffy, who represented the district at that event.
Thank you. Just continuing on with presentations, please.
Yes, I am going to go out because we have two paraphrase this evening. The first presentation this evening is required by the state, and I believe everyone here this evening knows that there is an Anti-Bullying Rights Act, and one of the required reports at a public meeting is a school self-assessment. So just to remind everyone, each school uses a rubric provided by the Department of Education to assess its own efforts toward meeting the various aspects of this legislation. And just as a reminder, we very readily now use the word HIB, which stands for harassment, intimidation, and bullying, but it looks at addressing anti-bullying, helping to improve climate and culture, and any other condition within the school related to how students get along with each other, interactions and things of that nature that could negatively affect students' growth. As I mentioned, we are required to do a public presentation and give the board an opportunity for comment as well as the public. You then will need to approve this. It will then get submitted electronically to the Department of Education. So there are, on each of these slides, you will see a core element at the top, indicators to the left, the total possible points, and how many points that school gave itself. And you notice in this particular one, it talks about the school safety team, and this is a team that has administration, representative staff members. Every school has a school anti-bullying specialist, and in some instances, parents and others may be involved. So again, in looking at the indicators, this is how each school assessed itself. Although you don't see it on this slide, one of the things that you will see consistent throughout the presentation is by the nature of preschoolers, some of the things are more challenging for them to do at that developmental level. So sometimes you will see Pomona having fewer points. Had that been in elementary or middle school, it would concern me. But we know every day, built into creative curriculum, the students are very much involved in building social skills and how to treat one another. This second category is training on the board-approved policy. And so you can see, again, the different indicators. One of the things I will mention, while a lot of this happens at the school level, when it comes to contracted service providers, I'll use bus drivers as an example, we take care of that for all the drivers at the district level as part of our training. For substitute teachers, Mr. Gruffy runs a training for them. This year, Mr. Presto, our new director, provided that type of training. Other staff instruction and training programs, and there are quite a few indicators in this area, and one of the things I'll point out here is because some have seen a connection between extensive harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and suicide, this also includes that training related to suicide prevention. And two more indicators for this same area, and again, the points that the school gave itself. The next area is curriculum instruction as related to HIB and other kinds of skills. So you can see age-appropriate instruction, observing the week of respect, which is coming up at the beginning of October. And please remember, this is their assessment of what happened last year. The next is very direct and relates to personnel. Principal appointing an anti-bullying specialist, them meeting at least 2 times a year, and the safety team meeting at least 2 times a year. The next item is following the HIB reporting procedures. And we have a very detailed board policy related to all of this, including regulation related to HIB reporting procedures, and that is reviewed each year. Then the actual investigation procedure. And you can see the different notifications. Some of those things happen at the school level, and then some things come up to my level. As the board knows, certain meetings, you approve a HIB report. And then continuing with reporting. And then we talk about next steps. As I mentioned, there will be a resolution. This then needs to get submitted. Based on the self-assessment from the commissioner's level, each school is assigned a grade, as is the district. When we receive that information, we have 10 days to post it on our website. So if you went on our website now, you would see this information from last year. When we receive those grades, that is an update I will give at a future board meeting. That generally takes some time. Think about the fact that there are, 600 and some school districts in the state of New Jersey. Everyone will be submitting this information, and then it goes through the processes at the state level. Just for your information, things that are part of ongoing efforts, certainly at the beginning of the year and then throughout the year, the administrators meet both with students and staff members, started by our former supervisor, who was our district anti-bullying coordinator, and we'll be continuing with our director, Christina Presto. There's a bi-monthly meeting. All of our guidance counselors are our head anti-bullying specialists, and our assistant principals work in cooperation with them for the investigations. So the director, as the district anti-bullying coordinator, meets with them as noted above. We continue to have a bully busting educational program for our students. As mentioned, there are different weeks designated by the state. As we discussed with the board before, we do a lot of work with restorative practices that really relates to this. And then finally, we are finishing that implementation of the second step social skills program. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions from the board and then if there's any from the public. Dr. Cormenter?
Yes, I'd like to know about indicators 6, 7, 8, and 6, 7, 8. These ones seem to deal with more with staff than with students. So I was just curious, why is Pomona so much lower than everyone else?
Well, actually, most of this is about when students feel they're being bullied or their parent might be feeling they're bullied. And a lot of this is based on student and parent reporting. So because of the nature of the preschool children, I don't believe we've ever had a preschool age child report I am being bullied. So because of that, there's just not as much work done at that level because it's not needed at that level. There's a lot of proactive education done at that level. If you wanted me to delve further, I could go to Dr. Grace and that team and find out, on this area, remember it's a self-assessment. So it's their interpretation of what the rubric says and how they score themselves.
Yes, I understand that part, but they were just consistently lower. And like I said, the parts that I was talking about specifically dealt with the staff and the instruction of the staff on how to handle these types of situations. So I was just curious to talk.
Yeah, I will add, Dr. Cormenter, I do know, because everyone gets this, that all the basic required training of what to do if you observe bullying, what to do if a child or parent reports bullying, they have all of that training, and that is reviewed and reinforced each year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? What I'm going to do is I'm going to do both presentations, and then we'll open up to public comment on either. So this way I can just keep going, and we don't have to turn the lights off. This presentation is our park results from the spring 2018 test administration. And board members, if you did not have a chance to check your email, this afternoon I did email the presentation out to you. I did not automatically print hard copies. If anyone would like a hard copy, please let me know and I will get that to you. So just some reminders. 2015 was the first year of the park, and at that point in time, there were two very distinct types of windows. 1 year later, changes were made, and the two different portions were integrated into one. We do receive data with state-level comparisons. Prior to park, with ASK and GEPA, and I'll go back to the EWT when I was still in the classroom. We used to get what is known as district factor group information. And we felt that was very valuable because it helped us compare our progress to like districts. That is no longer provided. I will also remind you that in park there are 5 levels. In New Jersey, and remember more than one state uses the park as their state assessment. In New Jersey, they only use 4 and 5 to show the passing percentage. In many states, they do include level 3 as well. So, we're going to begin with language arts, and as I wrote to the board in the bulletin, our 2018 scores in many instances were not as strong as the prior year. I do remind you that they are different children up a grade level, but this is still something we analyze, and review. So, on each slide, this passing percentage in the state is in red, and in the school district is in blue. You don't need to be a genius at reading charts to see that in comparison to the state, we did not do as well. You also see that varied by grade level. Again, there's a number of different slides. So this is the total passing percentage, meaning levels 4 and 5, across each grade level, across the entire district. Then if we look at that combination with levels 3, 4, and 5 combined and compare it to levels 3, 4, and 5 combined compared to states, not that it's totally better, but it is much better. We are much closer. So what that tells us is we have a lot of children that are on that level 3, that are close to hitting that 4, and so that's a point where we can delve further with data analysis and identify those children that are on the verge of meeting what New Jersey considers to be that passing score.
Before you get off the slide, I'm not understanding. Consider passing percentage for other states. When the header, considered passing percentage for other states, does that mean this is all 50 states?
No.
I don't understand.
No.
I'm sorry.
I do not remember the exact number, but there are a few states that still use PARC. So this means all of New Jersey, and I apologize, Betty Napoli very kindly put this presentation together. I can find out that detail for you.
That's one of the questions. When we added levels 3 through 5, but 3 still is not a passing level, correct? That's approaching, but not passing.
In New Jersey, it is not considered a passing level. In other states, it is. Then when we look at language arts over time, and one of the things to remember is this is different students each year. So you can see, again, the state is in red and the district is in blue. So one of the things we can very clearly notice, the third graders in 14-15 were doing better than the state. But then moving forward, we have not at this grade level across the district done as well as the state. When we look at 4th grade, you'll see these 2 years we were much closer, and that has widened. Again, it is different children each year. When we look at grade 5, so one example I can give you here is 3rd grade in 14-15 was a little ahead of the state. So 3rd grade, they are now, 5th graders. If you move 3 years ahead, they were closer. We look at 6th grade, and again, this is all language arts. Seventh grade. And 8th grade. One of the things, and I said this when I gave last year's presentation, that we have already analyzed is that we are struggling more on the writing side than the reading side. So you may recall that we are piloting new programs in Writing Workshop, and while the teachers that are piloting these programs, other teachers are getting general reinforcement training, and we've also made it more clear in our instructional minutes guide how many minutes are to be spent on the instruction of writing. We know that when the state changed to the Common Core and we adopted a new reading program to align with the Common Core, we spent a lot of our energy on the reading side because it was such a dramatic change in reading. There was a lot more nonfiction, informational text, and things of that nature. And we know we put so much emphasis in that that the writing side did not have as much strength, as much effort put into it. And we are now writing, if you will, R-I-G-H-T-I-N-G, the writing portion of the language arts curriculum. Mr. Conover, he is so good. So this is interesting, thank you. In 2011, there were 45 states that used the park. In 2016, there were 20 states that used the park. So this is 2017 results. Right now, as I stand before you, there are only 2 states plus the District of Columbia that will still be using the park, and it's very possible New Jersey will not be for much longer. So thank you, Mr. Conover. The internet is wonderful. So initiatives, things that we have been working on, and I obviously already mentioned one of them. We do a lot of training, and as I mentioned, a lot of the emphasis was on that reading side. Lexia, foundations, just words, they are all related to reading. So a number of these things have happened over time. This reader's workshop, that's in that enrichment intervention period we've talked about with the board. Last year was the very first year, so we need to give that a chance to take hold at the middle school level as well. 2018-19, I mentioned those students who attended both summer learning, Title I, ESY, special ed, there was a strong writing focus. We're doing the piloting, and Ms. Atkins happens to be here. She's been doing a lot of training and support with teachers and administrators on the writing side. Mathematics. So again, we look at the passing percentage. This is each grade combined for the entire district as compared to the state. Interestingly enough, I know last year when I gave the test results, middle school, the results were not as strong. And interestingly, when we looked at, the most recent administration, 7th grade was doing better than the state. 8th graders taking out the algebra kids closer, and our Algebra 1, our very, very best math students, doing better. I will remind you that Algebra 1 is not just taken by 8th graders taking algebra. It could be freshmen who are the students who take it the typical year at the present time. So then we'll again do that combination of 3 to 5 combined. So that does, other than 3rd grade, this does put us ahead of the states in that percentage combined. So again, we look at that as saying we have a lot of kids in that level 3 that need that extra boost to push them into that level 4. Again, this is different students each year. So again, the state is in red and the district is in blue. 3rd grade. 4th grade. I don't need to read to you. 5th grade. Generally speaking, in math, we are closer to the state average, although interestingly enough, generally speaking, the passing percentages of language arts are higher, but the gap is wider. 6th grade. This was one of the grades where we actually did better than the state and have consistently done so. Seventh grade as well. And 8th grade. Algebra 1, we've consistently seen the performance better.
Dr. G, you said this also includes some 9th graders?
Yes, Mr. Payne, what they do is whoever takes, whatever year you have Algebra 1, and take the Park Algebra 1 test for the first time, be it 8th grade, be it 9th grade, there may be some students in 10th grade, that is all combined. And if you think about it, an 8th grader who is good enough at math and has that abstract thinking a year ahead to take it is a really strong math student.
So
So
they
it
don't,
is an interesting piece of data.
so they don't report just 8th graders of our 8th graders taking the option.
These are students that took it here at GTMS last year as 8th graders. They're freshmen now. Combined with kids that used to be our kids, but across the whole state, not just Absegami students or Cedar Creek or Oak Crest kids. And math initiatives, again on the left, is things since the initiation of PARC. You may recall, just like in language arts, we had to switch the program because the standards had changed so much. Using EdConnect, we started that with math. Again, intervention periods, some different very direct math training, both about math content, such as fluency and problem solving, as well as a strategy known as a 3-act lesson. I think maybe last year, Mrs. Napoli gave some information to the board about that. And then for this year, we've had a lot of software on the reading side, like Lexia, to help students. We have finally found something on the math side. We've had some different things, but we really found something we like that's being implemented new this year. The board may recall approving some pilots with Pearson. We've updated our curriculum maps and ongoing training for some different mathematics strategies. Some subgroup data, and that's passing percentage. You can see, and this is both subjects. So green is language arts, and I'm going to call that a shade of purple maybe, is math. We are working. We know that we have an achievement gap between our white students and some subgroups. You'll later see with the difference between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged than our Hispanic students. Our Asian students. Special ed. Economically disadvantaged. This particular slide shows on one slide economically disadvantaged versus non-economically disadvantaged. And let me say this, the data you see with all of the subgroups is not necessarily unique to Galloway. It doesn't mean we accept it or like it. It's something we continue to work on. Our work with our partnership with Rowan for Equity Through Excellence, which is a consortium that Michael Hinman is our leader with that. One of their mission, one of their goals is to give school districts strategies to address these different achievement gaps. This was an interesting piece of data that Mrs. Napoli pulled this year. In the lighter shade of blue are students who were in Galloway less than a year. In the darker shade of blue, more than 4 years. So if they were a 3rd grader taking the test for the first time, and they had been here since kindergarten, or they could have been an 8th grader who started here in 4th grade. So we're trying to dig deeper in. And we are pleased to see that children who've been with us longer are doing better than children who have not had multiple years of education in our school district. And we're going to keep digging into this subgroup in this kind of slide. Mrs. Napoli, if you do not know this, is a whiz at data analysis and spreadsheets, and she's continuing to cut it different ways. One of the things we also like to do is you have children who could be economically disadvantaged and special ed, and how when you put those subgroups together, does that affect the data as well? I showed you in each subject some things we're working on across the curriculum. Every school has daytime and extended day intervention. I've already mentioned summer learning and extended school year, social skills, our United Responsible Students Achieving Program. Just to remind everyone, this is where we look at sixth graders who, at the end of sixth grade, who we believe have that academic ability, the ability to be great students, to set them on that path for college. We look for students maybe who are economically disadvantaged. Maybe no one in their family has ever graduated from college before. So that is a program that is in 7th and 8th grade. It actually starts in the summer. And then we continue limited based on funding and space, getting children that early start. One of the things that we know is because we don't have preschool for every child, when the children walk into kindergarten, there already are gaps the day they enter school, and we continue to work to try to address them. On the professional development side, you may recall that we are the author of this book, Cause and Cures, a number of years ago, and a multi-year plan. This year we will finish the final step of that training. For 2 years, 2 of our major themes were the causes and cures and cultural competency, race, and equity, how technologies can support this, and certainly our restorative practices. I will mention initiatives like this that are multi-year initiatives, they all become part of new staff orientation. So if we're doing part 2 of something, the new staff has had the opportunity to see part 1. One of the things, passing percentages certainly are important, but one of the things that we look for is, are our students growing? Is the achievement increasing from one year over the next? Because everybody has a starting point. And so what we have not yet received from the state are what are known as the student growth percentiles. We generally get them in November. And once we have them, there will be a presentation. Through the federal ESA funding that we receive, our Title I, 2A, etc., the state, working under the federal guidelines, there are targets set for each school. And that also, where was that school the first year of this data? And then they have targets that they need to meet. We have not received those accountability profiles either. And then although the state no longer provides us automatically with that district factor grouping data, again, through Mrs. Napoli, and I believe Mr. Hinman helps her with this as well sometimes, we, test data becomes public information. We'll do some of that ourselves so we can see, especially here in Atlantic County, the districts that are similar to us or other districts throughout the state that do have similar sized schools, similar populations, particularly on that economic side. So I will be happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments. Dr. Parmenter?
Yes, Dr. Giaquinta. I'd like to know the percentage of 8th graders last year that were involved in the algebra percentage.
I can tell you this. I do know that we have, from our 8th grade, last year there were about 90 students on each team, and each team had a class of algebra students. So I'm going to say maybe 25% of the kids are in algebra, but I can find out an exact percentage for you. That's just doing quick, 4 teams, one class in each team.
Okay, thank you. And also I noticed for the corrective plan that there was something for grades 46 and I believe 3 to 5, but I didn't see anything for 8th grade math because it seems like 8th grade just fell off a cliff.
Sure, just a couple things. At the elementary level, each school has 2 or 3, sometimes more depending on the population, the overall enrollment, intervention teachers. They do a combination of push in and pull out. In addition to that, built into the 4th through 6th grade schedule, there's an intervention period. Some kids are actually getting enrichment, some are getting extra help. The middle school also has that same kind of period during the day. That is that period that some board members have asked that we get feedback from the children. So the middle school also does have that daytime period as well, where if a student, reader's workshop is designed so every kid can be reading and getting assistance at his or her own level. Same thing on the math and science side. I will tell you, the elementary schools do either before or after school programs. Mrs. Goldberg, I know will remember this, and I will say, we have been trying for decades to get a lot of children at the middle school level to come to after-school extra help programs. It's very difficult to get them to stay. We do try to do homework clubs, but it was very targeted work. And what we found was we were spinning our wheels. We had all these staff sitting there and the children not coming because there's so much competition with after-school activities, or they're going home to watch their younger siblings. And so that is why we do have a daytime program to address this. Additionally, on the math side, there is a full-time teacher dedicated. Every period that he teaches is for needy math students who are not special ed.
Okay, thank you. One last question. I know you were analyzing the students who took the part, but in what I saw with the third grade for ELA, their scores were low, and so I wonder, did you look at, and I know you did, but I'd just like to hear your explanation. Second grade, see what's going on with second grade, the students leaving second grade, going into third grade, where is their baseline?
Sure, and a couple of things. We do our own benchmark assessments so many times a year through the Ed Connect program. So one of the things we have not had the chance to do is to compare where were children in Ed Connect either the prior year or that same year in comparison to how the PARCC scores came out. So that is a piece. One of the things that will help us is when the state also gives us that student growth percentile. So we may see that even though in third grade that passing percentage was low, that doesn't mean the growth will be low. And so it may be that that class on average started lower in those skills and made good growth, maybe even high growth. Now what we don't want to see is that there was low growth. So it's a combination of the passing percentage and that SGP. So when we get that information, I'll be able to answer that even better.
Thank you. And I said that was last thing, we have one last thing really.
Four, I don't know. Do we allow for President Carter? I'm just teasing you.
Can you please ask Mrs. Nicole to disaggregate the data for me on the 8th grade man for algebra?
Disaggregate the data?
Yes.
Okay.
That was all.
Very good. And Dr. Parmentier, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
Because I'm standing here, can you email me or hand me the questions in writing? I want to make sure I remember.
Okay.
Other board members?
Thank you.
I have a comment more than a question. I know for me, it's very frustrating and disappointing to see the scores as low as they are, and I'm sure you feel the same way, and the staff. I don't feel that it's a reflection, on the work that we're doing or the effort that's being put in. But for the past 2 or 3 years, we've put so much emphasis on student achievement, and to see the scores consistently low, it makes me think that we need to maybe rethink some of the things that we're doing. And I don't have the answer, it's just a comment. It's very disappointing to see that when we put so much effort into student achievement. So it's just a comment.
And Mrs. Harmon, we do feel that way. And that's, for example, why we decided we needed to do this renewed emphasis on writing. That is why even with professional development, certain things every staff member has to have the training. Other things, we give choice workshops to the staff. It's only been 1 year. I'm interested to see more years of middle school data with the scheduling changes they made here, making the team smaller, which helps with, class size. So there's a variety of things, and I think the board knows this, and I know the staff does. I believe there is a place for standardized test scores. I don't think they're the only factor, because I don't think these scores represent what I see when I visit classrooms. And even listen, I go out and read the classes, and I'll be asking the children questions about what I'm reading. And the answers I get are amazing. The question is, can they get that on a piece of paper? So we are looking at it as a number of different levels. The other thing we're waiting to see is the state going to change the test again. And that's a piece of it. And that's one of the reasons, and we appreciate the board's support, that we wanted to participate in that pilot, because what is going to happen in that pilot is they're going to take benchmark assessments and see what type of data that gives 3 times a year, as opposed to one test for numerous days in a row at a certain point in the year.
I hear you, but I also be going through with my children now. That is how you are assessed, is standardized testing. You know, you take the SATs, you take whatever, you know, to get into a magnet program in high school, to get into college. Unfortunately, it is testing that really determines.
Absolutely.
So although I don't disagree with you, I also think that we do need to focus on teaching our students how to take tests, or I don't know what the answer is, but I think the focus needs to remain on that as well.
We will continue to work on it. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
And just to follow up, is there any public comment to either one of those presentations? Moving on to superintendent's report, please.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Householder for the attorney's report.
Good evening, everybody. I have a quick attorney's report this month. You should have had in your packet the written report from August and July, as well as September. I did discuss a special education matter with the head of special education. In addition, we talked about a residency and homelessness issue, as well as reviewed just a few different laws that are upcoming, one particularly being the recess law.
Thank you. Is there any questions for our solicitor? Moving on to student enrollment report, please.
Thank you. Our first student enrollment report as of September 18th. In district, we have 3,318 students. When we add in special services, other schools for special needs students, home instruction, charter entries, the grand total increases to 3,390 students. I will remind the board that October 15th is the official ASSA report that gives us that count for the year that affects important things like state.
Thank you. Curriculum instruction, please.
Thank you. We just have 2 items this evening, both related to student volunteer groups at the middle school, traveling to the food bank and Spring Village.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 and 2 under curriculum instruction, please?
Second.
Is there any board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Gentile? Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Mr. Davies?
Yes.
Mrs. Carmen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to finance and school operations, please.
Thank you. We did have a finance committee meeting this evening, and I will turn it over to Vice President Davies to give a report.
There was a couple of questions on that bill list, which Julie, who happened to be at the meeting, answered for us. As usual, on her checklist, or on our checklist, she had all kind of explanations for us. And a couple other things, minor things, Jim, you want to comment? And that's it. It was very good, efficient meeting, as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you. The items we have this evening, items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the annual and monthly financial items. We then have submission of various reports to the Department of Education, the ESSA Consolidated Subgrant Financial Expenditures Report. We also have submission of the non-public completion report. Attached for the board's information are the grants that have been provided to teachers who apply for education foundation projects, and we thank the foundation for that support. We then have a renewal of the contract for Mobile's Modular for our modular classrooms at Pomona, the interlocal agreement between the township and the school district for our school resource officers, and as you can see, there's an hourly rate for the officer plus other fees that are part of the contract. Approving a grant so that we can get EpiPens, the easy way to say all of that, for the nurses' offices. Item 14, I do have a correction. The amount for both, it's only one student, it should be $78,307.30, and that is because this child has a one-on-one aid. Resolution 15 is specialized services. Resolution 16 and 17, 18 are related to non-public services provided. Resolution 19 is for itinerant services through Burlington County Special Services. As I noted on the agenda, we improved the, in the bulletin, we improved the entire list. But at this point, we are contracting for one sign language interpreter. Resolution 20 is an addendum to a contract for an aid. And then the last item is out-of-district travel. I will tell you that should be AENJ, Art Educators of New Jersey.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 21 under finance and school operations, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Yes, Dr. Carney.
Number 13, is it just 12 EpiPens total to the district?
Is it 12 EpiPens total for the district, number 15?
I believe so, Dr. Parmenter, and most children who need one have a script from a doctor and have their own at school. This is a supply in the event of an emergency.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter? Vice President Days?
I must abstain item number 6 on the bill list, page 48, PO number 905327, yes on everything else.
President Carney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to facilities and maintenance, please.
Yes. We only have one resolution this evening, and this is a withdrawal from the maintenance reserve account and transfer into the appropriate accounts. And the standard language as required by the Department of Ed is there. These are for projects at various schools, temporary boiler at Oceanville, replace the heat pump unit at Arthur Rand, ceiling grid installation at Arthur Rand, boiler inspection and cleaning for all of the schools, gymnasium floor repair at Arthur Rand and the middle school, and replace a failed purge core at the middle school. The account numbers and the amounts are listed. It's totaled $141,000.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item number 1 under facilities and maintenance?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Vice President Days?
Yes.
President Carney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to community use of school facilities, please.
Yes, the first item this evening is a renewal of our agreement with the Atlantic County Office of Emergency Management for the middle school and Roland Rogers to serve as county shelters. The other 4 items are related to more typical community use of school facility. I will note again this year, Special Olympics will be hosting part of the Winter Games right here at GTMS.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 5 under community use of school facilities,
So
please?
moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Vice President Days?
Yes.
President Carney?
Yes. Moving on to personnel, please.
Yes, I will read these first 2 items in their entirety. Number 1, a resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Parliament as a language arts teacher. I believe she's doing social studies now. She was a language arts teacher most of her career. At the Galloway Township Middle School, effective December 31st, 2018. Mrs. Lanzoni has worked in the Galloway Township Public School District for 19 years, and her dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item 1 under personnel?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Gentile? Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
That was in order there. Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Vice President Days?
Yes.
And President Carmen.
Yes.
Thank you. The second item is a resolution to accept with regret the letter of intent to retire from Patricia Angela, food service worker, Reed's Road School, effective November 2nd, 2018. Mrs. Angela has worked in the Galloway Township Public School District for 18 years, and her dedication and service to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item 2 under personnel?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you very much. Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hand? Vice President Days?
Yes.
President Carmen.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolutions 3 through 6 are all leave requests. The name of the staff member, the dates, and the terms and conditions are listed.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 3 through 6 under personnel, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Vice President Days?
Yes.
President Carmen.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolutions 7 through 17 are all other personnel. I will point out at number 7, we are hiring a new school psychologist, Angela Gwathney. I will say Angela is a product of our school system. Unfortunately, she could not be here this evening because she's in a doctoral program and has class tonight. The other items are for approval of a long-term substitute teacher, full and part-time custodians, part-time food service worker, transfer of a classroom assistant, another part-time food service worker, salary guide adjustments that are related to these staff members increasing their higher education, substitute teachers for reapproval, as well as new substitute teachers, and finally 2 new substitute secretaries.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 7 through 17 under personnel, please?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Mr. Davies?
Yes.
Mrs. Carmen?
Yes. Moving on to supplemental.
Thank you. The last section is supplemental positions, and for this, we have approvals related to the consortium, the Parent Community Involvement Specialist, which is funded and required by the Preschool Expansion Grant, child care, novice teacher training, and 2 different programs at Roland Rogers that are funded by Title I.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 7 under supplemental personnel, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Mrs. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hand? Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Vice President Days?
Yes.
President Carmen?
Yes.
Thank you. And the last section, these are second readings of the revised job description, administrative assistant to the superintendent, to the school business administrator board secretary, and to the human resources manager. As noted last time, there was a question. There was a qualification number 4 that was only on the HR job description, so we did remove that.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item number 1 under supplemental job descriptions?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any board comment?
Yes. Dr. Chiaponte, you said to remove number 4 off of the Human Resources Secretary job description. That's correct. Okay.
Thank you. Is there any other board comment? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Dr. Parmenter?
Yes.
Vice President Days?
Yes.
President Carmen?
Yes. Seeing no policy, we'll move on to notice of public meetings. please.
Yes, we do have 2 meetings in October, the 15th and the 29th.
Special events.
We also have 3 back-to-school nights remaining, all this week. And then next Sunday is the Education Foundation Golf Outing.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Is there any new business to come before the Board of Education? Any old business? Okay, around the board. Sherry, do you have anything for this evening? Mike?
I attended the Reedsboro back to school night, and everyone went straight to the classroom, so I didn't get to see how many people were there, but judging from the parking lot, it was a good turnout.
Did you like the format going straight to the classrooms or no?
As a parent, yeah, I think it was probably better.
Okay. All right, thank you. Tom? Jim? Ro? Rich? I went to the rolling back to school night, and we actually met in the cafeteria first, and it was very well attended. I don't know which format I would like better though as a parent. Probably going straight to the classroom, but it was nice to see everybody there as well. Do we have any executive sessions this evening?
We do not.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?